Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cody TroutPod. Today, we're here with a very special guest. I've known him a long time. Known him my entire life. My father, Chuck Troutman.
Hello. Thank you.
And I figured, in honor of the first ever Dad-isode, which is the episodes with you, because you'll be a recurring stalwart figure.
Depending on the money.
Depending on the money. I wanted to tell a dad joke.
Oh gosh.
So, for context, as you know, my best friend just had a baby and became a dad, and already he was already teetering. He is fully off the deep end into dad territory, and he requested from his sister, who also has a kid, so that makes him an uncle as well. And now that he's a dad, they got him a special, like, commemorative mug. You know those coffee mugs that have like words or jokes on them?
Right.
It's the worst joke I've ever heard. So on the mug it says, "Don't mess with Uncle Saurus, or you'll get Jurass kicked."
Oh gosh.
I was like, and my best friend's name's Cade. I was like, Cade, man, this is like, I've seen some.
That's deep into the dad territory, man.
You know, we've been through some dark times together, but that's the worst of the worst. I've seen you at your lowest.
Yeah.
This is a new low. I'm Cody Troutman, and this is my podcast, the Cody TroutPod.
Well, it's interesting to see anyone who, once they have a kid, how their behaviors change, their speech patterns change, their just everything about you is just a little different because now you have a kid.
I know.
You know, you got to be that. Now you're not just Cade, your buddy, and just, you know, it's like, hey, let's go get a beer, let's go get a Slurpee, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it'll take 15 minutes to get the baby in the thing, and we got to gather all this stuff, and then I got to make sure it's okay with Rachel, and
Exactly.
it's a whole thing. That's your mom and I used to go to movies a lot, and you know, we could look the hey, this starts in 10 minutes, jump in the car and go, and then you have kids.
Fun.
Then you have kids. It's like, nope.
Oh man,
it starts in an hour and a half. I think we can make it.
We might make the second half.
Might make intermission. Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah. That's actually kind of what I wanted to talk about today because, well, first I want to highlight kind of a difference that kind of paints your character and a story that mentions Cade. Okay. Because this is a story I think a lot, you know, when I was thinking about telling you the joke about the mug, I was like, oh, what's another story that involves Dad and Cade? Well, this was, oh man, probably 8-10 years ago when we were in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And Cade came with us.
Yeah.
So me, you, and my best friend Cade, we all had a room together.
Yep.
And one night, Cade and I decided that, I think you already know the story, but we decided that
the knuckleheads.
There was, and this highlights perfectly the difference between how my dad would handle something and how my mom would handle something. So I think it's like a perfect segue. So we decided that so the hotel had this movie rental service where you could like click and rent a movie, and the one we wanted to watch was $3.99, and we decided that we know we can get this movie for free on the hotel entertainment system because it was free on a streaming service that we found, like Netflix or something. But the hotel had this giant bed couch that swung out into the room, and you could lower a screen over the entire wall, and you could sit in this alcove out overlooking the Las Vegas Strip while you watched like a 500-inch movie, and we were like, we have to get this. So we decided that we would go into like the audio visual box, and we found like it was kind of like mounted to the wall. We pulled it out of the wall. There's 50 cords coming off the back. We disconnected the entire system. We tried to hook in like our phones and laptops and like go through, you know, the Wi-Fi in the room, you know, Bluetooth into, you know, different things, whatever. And basically we had the entire room's audio visual setup disassembled at one point. And this was at the point that, because I think you had gone to dinner with Mom. Because for context, we were there for my younger sister, Jessie, her dance competition. So the full family was there, but my mom was staying with Jessie. You were in the room with that, like the boys' room. And
yeah, that was cool.
Dinner with Mom.
Yeah, because it was at the top of Planet Hollywood, and that was a 100-inch screen.
Yes,
that would lower down out of the ceiling. It was the entire wall was now the movie screen, and you were only like 10 feet away, so it was like it was in your face. So Yeah, I was out to dinner and then.
But so when you came back from dinner, I remember you opened the door, and it was like one of those moments you see in movies where it's like, listen, it's not what it looks like. And I remember you said, it looks like you guys have torn apart the entire room's audio-visual system. I remember me and Cade looked at each other and were like, well, it is exactly what it looks like. It is exactly what's going on here. And I remember thinking, like, of all the things I was going to say as you, like, made us put it back together, because I was thinking of, like, how Mom would have, like, freaked out, and you said, well, I'm going to bed. You two super geniuses have this put together by morning, or there will be a problem.
Yeah, that was my only concern. Can you put it back like you found it?
And I remember thinking like, whoa, okay. Like, as long as we get it back together. Yeah. So it took us hours because we had destroyed the whole thing. We had started the movie process at probably 9 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
By about 4 or 5 a.m., we had figured out the audio-visual system. Now, we'd taken snack breaks, walk breaks, brainstorm breaks, frustration breaks, breaks from our breaks. We had done everything. And once we finally got it working and finally got it put back together, we were so tired, we didn't watch the movie. We went to bed. So I thought that was and then you came back in the morning, and you're like, is our system working? We're like, yeah. You're like, all right. Then
there you go.
No more conversation needed. And I was like, wow, that was kind of cool.
It was kind of cool. I was impressed because I came in and I thought, oh boy, we're going to be paying this hotel thousands of dollars to repair this thing, and you guys figured it out how to take it apart and got it back together, and it worked when we left. That's all I cared about.
That's true.
Did it work when we left? Yeah. It was back together. So that was a good trip. But back to where you started with the dad jokes. I mean, one when you and your sister were little. My favorite of all time was anytime you guys would ask me, Dad, you know what's...
Yes. Okay, so I'll set it up for you. Yeah. So we'd run up, for some reason, anytime something of note happened, we'd run up to our dad and we'd say, Dad, you know what's weird?
A platypus. Every time. Every time. This went on for years.
Yeah. I think it was because Jessie got a stuffed animal of a platypus when she was young. So we just were looking into platypuses or platypi, I think.
Platypi, yes.
And they were so weird.
Platypusy? I don't know.
That sounds like a James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that that kicked off the and that's endured for almost 20 years, probably. I mean, that's a classic joke.
Every time, if you guys have a sentence that has weird in it, I always say platypus, and it always gets a chuckle because that was our favorite when you guys were little. I
think that's the cool thing about dad jokes. While they may get an eye roll, they have real staying power. They don't go out of style. It's like, hey, I'm hungry. Hey, hungry, I'm dad. Like that has no bearing to time period, setting. Yep. All it needs is a hungry individual.
Yep.
And so it's real staying power. But you mentioned a minute ago that when you have a kid, life changes a lot, and you and Mom used to go to all these movies. Since this is your first episode on the podcast, I thought it would be really fun to talk about, because I've only known you as a dad, and I think every kid, by definition, has only known their parents as parents. So sometimes it's strange to think about, or it's easy to forget that you had an entire life before being a dad.
I was a kid once.
And you were a kid, you were a young adult, you were a young man. And so I think what would be fun is going through some of the cool moments of your life that I've heard about in stories, but having you tell them to me and to the audience as something of a friend conversation. Because I've heard stories from you and Mom, but I think suffice to say, I think you had an extremely exciting, adventurous, and at many times hilarious life before becoming a father. So I want to know more about that. I remember briefly you've told me about different times growing up. So as all lives begin, you were a kid, your dad was in the military, you moved around a lot. Are there any things that stick out? Or I'll let you tell your stories.
Like you said, I was born in Panama City, Florida, and before I was a year old, we moved to England to a base called Alconbury. And
didgeridoo.
Yeah, and
that's Australian.
Yeah, and we were there for 3 years, which I have no memory of because I was only not even 4 years old yet.
The drugs.
My sister, she's 2 years older than me, and so she remembers a little bit about England, and I've seen the home movies and stuff. But
were there dinners with the Queen? Was there
absolutely
tea time?
Yes,
was it a luxurious existence?
But my parents, and this is interesting too, because you just said, most of the stories you've heard about me are third party, other people telling stories. Oh, your dad this, or Chuck did this, or, that other people telling. You've never heard me really tell my story in a start to finish. But apparently we both came back to the United States. We came from there and went to Clovis, New Mexico, where Dad got stationed then. And we both had English accents for about a year. That we both had a little bit of English accent. My sister more than me.
Hey, well, this is a little poppycock, isn't it?
What, New Mexico? Where's old Mexico?
It doesn't look very new to me.
It doesn't look very new to me. No, then Clovis, New Mexico is out in the middle of nowhere, nice Air Force base. And so I grew up a lot around Air Force bases. We went from there. Then that's where I started kindergarten, and I kind of have some vague memories of kindergarten.
Yeah.
Now, just in context too, Dad was a sergeant in the Air Force. Mom worked secretarial jobs and things like that. So we didn't have anything. I mean, we were by today's standards, we were poor. Okay. We lived in mobile homes, lived in trailers, and lived near the base, so it wasn't far to go. My dad would work jobs on the side as a mechanic. He would fix things, repair things, which would play into his later life as they exited the service and all that.
Quick note about the mobile homes. What's interesting about like my generation and Jesse's generation is that's now becoming like an idealized way of life. It's called a tiny home. Yeah, now the tiny homes convert, buses and vans and RVs into these really like.
Oh, and there's a booming business in that now too. People are actually building mini homes.
And having never been forced to live in like close quarters like that, I look at it, I'm like, that looks so awesome. So that just speaks to like my.
Well, just in context, my bedroom growing up was about the size of your closet.
Okay.
It had enough room for a twin bed, a little sliding door closet, and some drawers built into the wall.
An Xbox 360.
Oh yeah, all the latest. Yeah, but no, your grandma made a lot of our clothes.
Nice.
Yeah, and just anything we could do to save money. I mean, going out to eat was a big deal.
Oh.
I mean, like once a month we might go out to eat, and it wasn't like going to Red Prime or Steakhouse or something. It was like KFC.
Okay.
And if you got to go to KFC or Burger King or, it's called, we had Burger Chef back then, which doesn't even exist. Yeah. Indeed.
That sounds like English tradition as well.
Not the level of Burger King, it's a chef.
It's a chef.
Yeah. But,
well, because the king is a title reserved for, in England, only the elite.
Only the elite.
Burger
Exactly.
Chef. That's like that line from Pulp Fiction. It's like, do you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese?
Yeah. A Royale with cheese. Yeah.
The metric system. He's like, you a smart guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Because of the metric system. So then from Clovis, like I said, I remember starting kindergarten and then we moved to Amarillo Air Force Base, White Air Force Base there. And those are my real strong memories of a kid. We lived we live in trailer park, KOAs, they call them campgrounds of America. I don't even know if KOAs still exist, but we lived in a KOA campground in a regular single wide trailer like we always did, and $50 a month or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And but as a note there, I don't remember being poor.
Yeah.
I had food, I had clothes. I was raised in a loving household with a family, and I didn't know we didn't have anything. I was never around rich people, so everybody around us was a bunch of the rest of the poor people. So I never felt like I was missing anything, which is a real tribute to my parents. That I never felt like I went without. And, I had toys, I had friends, I had always played, and we went on vacations just like every other family. But
I wonder, just to interject, I wonder if like the context of your own experiences, I wonder if that's like a universal thing where you only realize what you don't have if you can observe it or have previously experienced it. Like, I wonder if someone, like now I think with social media and the internet, it's easy to see what you don't have, but I wonder if like... well,
because there's so many people out there putting stuff on there. Look at what I am. Look how showing their dinner tab where they spent $4,000 on a meal. It's like,
I mean, 4,000 is nothing. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, that's lunch.
You're flexing on that. That's breakfast or brunch at minimum.
Please, yes. Challenge me.
The peasantry. But I wonder if back when you were growing up, if they had like social media and stuff, do you think it might have been a different experience seeing things that you didn't have, and maybe the lack of like context of another way of life helped you stay present and focus more on what you did have and enjoy those things? Do you think that was the case?
Maybe so, but then, to go back to my parents, I mean, just to digress one more time here in this time shift thing but your grandfather and your grandmother, my parents, really poor. I mean, I'm
Okay.
talking poverty poor, nothing. I mean, grew up where it was a struggle every day just to exist.
Yeah.
And my dad had 7 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
He was the second
That'll do it.
second to the last. His mother died when he was 6 years old.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and so he was raised by sisters who were already teenagers at the time, but then they all, as they grew and got married and moved on, well, he was left. It was him and his younger brother Clyde were the 2 youngest. And so they were left with just the dad. And when the dad remarried, they were kind of out of it, And my dad, and this is in southern Missouri, Branson area, which wasn't Branson like we know Branson now. This is when it was just another little tiny town. But School of the Ozarks was there, and your grandfather went there when he was 12 years old. At that time, it was a work farm for boys who had no place to go.
Oh, man.
And you got to live there, but they raised cattle and sheep and chickens and goats, raised all their own food, grew their own produce. And your grandfather, Paul, would tell stories of on Saturdays, they would go down, unload boxcars to make a nickel.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you worked all day, you could make about 15 or 20, maybe 25 cents if you worked all day unloading boxcars down at the rail yard, and you would use that so you could go to the movies. And for a quarter, you could go to the movies, get popcorn and a Coke.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was 25 cents, and that was a big deal. So
I wonder what has raised more, the earnable wages or the price of a movie ticket, a popcorn, and a Coke. I bet the movie
the
price.
movie price, yeah,
because for 25 cents, you can get, that's $20 now.
Yeah. Well, I remember, just as an example, when Avatar came out, and we all went to see it in 3D.
You're
on
talking about the blue people.
Yeah, the blue people.
Right?
Yeah, the movie Avatar. And I remember what was that, 10 years ago now?
I think it was 2009.
Yeah, something like that. Well, quite a while ago.
12 years.
But we went to the IMAX theater. That when IMAXs were new, and then it was in 3D, and that's where I wore my sunglasses instead.
Oh, that's a great story. My memory of the Avatar movie, the one with the blue people, is like you just said. It was like a big 3D visual event. And I remember Jessie was sitting next to you, so I wish she was here to tell the story because she was the one that saw it happen. But you had to put on the 3D glasses.
It tells you, put your glasses on now.
Like during the previews, it's like, put your 3D glasses on, the 3D is starting. And so we all put our 3D glasses on, and the movie's a good 15 minutes in, probably.
Yeah, it was going. The movie. We watched all the previews, and the movie is going.
So
yes,
the 3D's been going for a good 15 plus minutes, and this movie had been hyped up as so digitally impressive, so visually amazing. The 3D, the best ever, and you kind of keep leaning forward and looking at us, and finally you tap Jessie, and you're like, are your glasses messed? Like the 3D is really bad. And she looks at you and she goes, Dad, you have your sunglasses on, not your 3D glasses.
I put them both in the same pocket. So I just reached in and pulled out a pair of glasses. I put them on. I'm going,
like,
this is nothing special.
This is crap.
And you guys are all going, ooh, ha, oh, ha. I switched guys going, yeah, this is pretty damn cool. So I was like, that's a dad moment.
Oh, yeah. I think it's perfect that Jessie was the one like, Dad.
Yeah. And
because was she, like 14 at the time?
Oh,
No.
not even that old. She would have been
11, maybe.
Yeah, she would have been like 10 or 11. Yeah. And that movie, it was the coolest thing that had come in cinema. Yeah,
that was crazy.
Yeah. That first time you see that movie in the theater 3D, you just go, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because it was beautiful. It was just a great movie to watch. But, we're talking about the money of movies and all that. Yeah, 25 cents back in, that would have been like 1942 or 3 pretty much during World War II.
Yeah.
And, but I remember going to that movie, the tickets were like $15 each, and which was a lot of money at that time to see a movie because regular movie tickets were like $7.
Yeah, but it was like the big. I remember it was like a family event.
Yeah, I mean, we spent over $100, but by the time we got everybody popcorn and treats and drinks, Sour Patch Kids, Mom's Milk Duds, and I like the popcorn.
The ocean of popcorn.
Yes, the endless
and
sea
you're
of
like, wait, this movie's 2 hours and 45 minutes. You better get me the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, that's right. I need
the Pacific's the big one. Give me the Pacific.
The barrel of popcorn. So, and it was great, but I thought, we spent $100 to go see a movie, and 13 years ago that was,
a lot.
It still is. But your mother and I just went to a movie for the first time since COVID, just a few months ago, and just for the two of us, it was like $50. Dang. For 2 tickets and treats and popcorn and stuff. So you just wonder, you know why people sneak stuff in.
Oh, I sneak stuff in every time. I haven't paid for a movie snack in a decade.
Yeah, exactly.
Me and Cade, we used to have a system where like we'd go to this one. I don't want to say which movie theater it is because I don't want them to patch my secret. So there's like a door you can open only from the inside. It's like this back service door. And so one of us would go in, buy one movie ticket, and go to this back service door and just wait till the coast was clear. The other would pull the car around to the back service door and have everything ready. And we would take in, and I'm not kidding, we would go and we would see, because our plan was like on a Friday or Saturday, me and Cade, my best friend, we loved movies, so we would hit a back-to-back. So we would find a movie time, 2 movies we wanted to see, and we'd go see like the 8 p.m. and the 10:30 of 2 different movies. So we would bring into the movie theater 1 full large pizza, 2 cheeseburgers, 2 orders of fries, a couple of milkshakes, assorted candies, and like multiple bottles of soft drinks. And we'd have it in like a big backpack for everything, and then like carry the pizza box. And so we would go to one of us would be at the back service door, and when the coast was clear, you would hear boom, 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 3 loud knocks.
Yep.
That meant right away come in, because as soon as they would knock, they would pop the door open and then go look out, because you can't have both people just standing there looking guilty.
Yeah.
And if someone was coming, they would waylay the person and be like, "Oh, sir, where's the restroom?" And so if you heard them talking loudly, that meant get the F out of there. Like, you gotta hide.
Right.
And we did that.
I remember.
I'm probably like 15 times over the course of like a couple years where we were doing that. And I remember one time we had a spread. It was Sunday dinner in the movie theater, and the cops walked in, and we're like, "Oh no!" Like,
we're busted.
And I was in my head thinking like, "There's no way the cops are getting involved." Like, are they really? And so I remember we had all this out, and we quickly just kind of put it on the floor. The cops walk right to us because we're sitting by ourselves. We wanted to be away from everybody because we wanted to talk to each other during the movie. That was our thing. We'd be like, "Oh, this is great." You know, we're like the worst moviegoers ever. And so they walked right up to us, and we're like, the jig is up. We're looking at each other like, "Oh God." And the guy goes, "Hey, we've had reports of a disturbance, some kids being rowdy in a theater. You guys seen anything in here?" We're like, No. And we're like looking at, and they're like, "Okay." And they walked out. And I was like, can they not smell the pizza, burgers, milkshakes? Can they not see the ranch dressing I have just splashed all over my
ketchup drooling out of your chest?
The backpack open with snack. Like, it was amazing. It just goes to show, like, you only see what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I remember after that, we got a little skittish, to be honest, really. You know, you got to know when to leave the casino.
Right.
And so at that point, we downgraded our operations, just sneaking in candy in pockets and stuff. But there was a good year and a half where once or twice a month, we would just do, and it was like each time it worked, we got more and more bold. And so that was, that was quite the adventure. But I want to make sure, because I want to hear more about you. Let's fast forward to high school.
Oh, boy.
Specifically, a story that Mom used to tell me just as a joke. She said when you were in high school, you used, or maybe middle school, I don't know, at some point in school, there were times where you would know exactly the grade you would need to get on a test to pass a class.
Right.
And so you would so say that you needed like a 72 or a 70%. That's a nice runner. A 70% on a test to pass a class. And say the test was only 10 questions, even though it wouldn't be. This is like a math example. You would only answer 7. So you would only answer the exact amount you needed, and you'd have to get them all correct. Is that true?
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Anarchy.
There's a couple of layers to getting there.
Tell me about it.
I started school when I was 5. Started first grade when I was 5.
That's pretty young, right?
Well, yeah, most people are 6.
Okay.
I didn't turn 6 until November of my first year of first grade.
Okay.
So I was 5 starting, and you know, it's Thanksgiving is when my birthday is right around Thanksgiving. So I just turned 6.
I always forget your birthday.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, and most of the kids had already been 6 for months. You know, so I was at least 6 to 9 months younger than everyone in there. But because of your Aunt Sue and living in England and all that, she could read when she was about 5 and 6, and she taught me to read. At 4 years old, I could read. I could read basic books at 4 years old.
Explains why you're such a well-read man to this day. You had an extra year to jump on the books.
I had an extra year to jump it. So I was just as cognitively smart, you know, intellectually smart in first grade as anyone else, and none of that
way handsomer.
Well, yeah, and charming and handsome, of course, and none of that catches up to you till physically it becomes where it's different when you get to high school.
Okay.
Then you're a year behind, so you're younger.
Okay.
Puberty doesn't happen the same time as everybody else. Everyone's getting their driver's license 6 months, 9 months, even a year sooner than you. So imagine that.
Just by definition of when you started school, you were like quote unquote a late bloomer.
Yes, very late bloomer, but early to the game, but still behind. But intellectually, I was still always one of the smartest kids in the class.
Not surprising.
And then they used to call them SATs for kids. It was Scholastic Achievement Tests.
Okay.
And you took those, every year at least.
So that's not the same SAT that people take now.
Not the college entrance exam. That's what they called them for kids in middle school and lower, which we called junior high then. So ninth grade and lower, you would take these scholastic, and just to see where you were and where you stacked up against the rest of the kids in the country.
Yeah.
And in reading, math, and all that, I always scored in the 95 percentile.
Hell
and
yeah.
So, like I said, intellect-wise, I was always right there with everyone else. But
you were. That's way ahead. My man was acing.
Yeah, I was ahead of most kids, and it's not to brag. I just was blessed with a good mind and had a good.
If it's factual, is it bragging? I mean,
true. So and had a good support system at home. We read books and and all that. So it was good that I was being reinforced at home to be scholastically an achiever. Mm-hmm. So. This is probably
do well in school. They wanted you to scholastically achieve.
That's right. Yeah,
you're backing up all these. This story is rife with facts, credentials. Yes, I'm living this moment. Continue.
That's yeah. So by the time I get to high school, I'm cocky and arrogant. We had moved. Well, backing up, we went Clovis, Amarillo, Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, which is near St. Louis. And then when Dad retired in 1971, 72, we moved to Lebanon, Missouri. Mm-hmm. Lebanon's at that time about 20,000 people, small town, southern Missouri. But that was kind of where their roots were, is that southern Missouri area, still in the Ozarks. And they'd started their antique business while Dad was still in the military, so they established their antique business. So I start middle of 8th grade year is when we come to Lebanon, Missouri.
Okay.
So just before, and at that time it was 1st through 6th, and 7, 8, 9 was junior high, they called it.
So that's a tough.
Yeah. So I'm right in the middle, and I'm
and that's like because you're like 13,
right at 13 years old.
That is an awkward age for everybody.
Just moved to middle school. I'm the new kid, and that's something too that to interject. I was used to being the new kid, and that's what gave me a lot of my personality, being able to make friends easily, tell jokes easily, be the class clown, because I was the class clown, always cutting up. And so by the time we get to high school, I knew that C's were going to be okay. C student.
C's for degrees. That saying exists to this day.
I definitely had the potential and capability to make straight A's, but it just didn't matter to me, I wasn't. And that's the thing too. I think about it now. Neither of your grandparents, no one had been to college in our entire family ever. Yeah. No, on either side of the family, no one had ever been to college. And so it wasn't something like, we were talking to you kids about college when you were in 2nd grade.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just wasn't a thing like, well, you're going to finish high school, you go on to college, you get a degree, you'll do this. None of that was pressed into us because my parents were self-made. They started their own business. They're entrepreneurs. They're, this is what they do. And that's what college schmollege.
Yeah. You can unload boxcars for a nickel. Why would you go to college?
That's right. So I didn't. So I remember clearly there was one, and your grandfather tells this story. He loves it because the teacher had told them,
oh boy,
that I needed 50% on a test of 100 questions. And so I went through and found 50 questions I knew the answer to, answered them, and turned my paper in.
Rolling the dice. That is like the size of balls you got to have to roll the dice like that.
Here, thinking about it 45 years later, what an idiot. What an arrogant little, full of himself and just.
But did you get the 50?
Oh, yeah. And made the grade and passed the class and went on, So, yeah. So I every question I answered was correct. And that was the thing that the teacher wanted to talk to my parents about. he's smarter than this. It's
Yeah.
like, well, not smarter than this. He's better than this.
Okay.
He should have answered all the questions and gotten 100. Because
Listen, Albert Einstein failed math on
Oh, yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
So I think you were just following in the footsteps of other great intellectuals by.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, it's like, why.
That's what I was thinking. I'm going to Einstein this test. Me and Al.
Kids try to ace it. I'm going to Einstein.
Me and Al go way back. So, but I graduated with I can't remember, somewhere around a 3.0, in high school. And
That's still good.
Yeah. But small town Lebanon, Missouri, it was very small. And all there was to do, there was a bowling alley on one end of town, a Sonic on the other end, and then all the country roads and all the parties that people had out on different farmlands and stuff.
If you got a bowling alley and a Sonic, what else do you really need?
So because at the time, the big deal was, that's why it was so important to get your driver's license and your first car, because that's what everybody did on Friday and Saturday night. You'd drive from one end of town, you'd go through the bowling alley parking lot, see who was hanging out there, come out, come back through town and go around the Sonic, and that was it. And everybody just cruised. And the average speed was maybe 15, 20 miles an hour. And
there's no texting your friends like, hey, where you at? It's I'm going to go find them.
You're just looking for them. And everybody cruises and waves, and people would stop and talk to each other in the middle of the street and block cars, and people were honking. And
it kind of sounds like nostalgic and romantic. Like it's a little idealized, but.
Well, I can truly say the movie Dazed and Confused with Matthew McConaughey, where he first did the all right thing, that is a very, very similar. That small town in the middle of nowhere, people cruising in their cars, and guys been out of high school a couple of years, still trying to pick up the high school girls.
Like Matthew McConaughey said, he keeps getting older. Those high school girls stay the same.
Yeah. So that was, I truly, and that there's a big party scene in that where they're out in the woods, and there's all these. That happened to me many times.
Wow.
Where people would be out and someone would get somebody to buy a bunch of beer. We find that kid that graduated a few years ago goes, hey man, bring us a bunch of beer, and they say, so that was going on. So I had a great experience in high school, a lot of friends, and there was a pretty solid line of, like in The Outsiders, the Socias and the Greasers or whatever.
That was kind of real.
Yeah, that was in our town. Yeah, because there were the partiers, and then there were the straight-laced kids, and then there were the stoners. That all the kids that smoked weed and all that. And back then, you'd go to prison for a joint.
Dang.
Yeah. It was highly a big deal to get busted with pot back then. And oh gosh, that just made me think of one story.
Oh, let's hear it.
This was before I could drive, and Kelly O'Brien was one of my really good friends. And Kelly was a guy who could ride the line because he was a star football player. He was one of the studs on the football team, but he also smoked weed, so he fit in with the stoners, and he liked to party. So he kind of he crossed all the lines.
Ferris Bueller.
He was that guy that everybody liked him. He had a good reputation at school, good student, and really handsome guy. And
now, did he have the balls to only answer 50 questions on 100 questions?
He wasn't that smart.
Nah, he wasn't that ballsy. He wasn't no Einstein.
Right. But so it was me, him, and another guy named Mark that was a running buddy of ours. And there was a guy, Old Joe, I think. Is Old Joe or Old Joe? Anyway.
His name was Old Joe?
Yeah, and he lived in his station wagon down at Maple Crest Park, the city park down there, and you'd see him down there. And at night, and the police left him alone because he wasn't trouble. He just during the day, he'd be in his station wagon around town, and he was one of the guys that would collect cans and do odd jobs and stuff.
Unload boxcars for a nickel.
Unload boxcars for a nickel, and so he'd sit down there at the park and he'd sleep in his car. So we're out on a Friday night one time, and we park across from there, and we had collected a sack of apples that had fallen off the tree out of our backyard at KK and Pa's house, at my parents' house. And
Red Delicious, Fuji, Granny Smith.
Just Granny Smith. Just green apples.
I'm going to be in the store.
They were only like this big. So it's little, about the size of a tennis ball and smaller.
Okay.
So we take this bag of apples and we go in the park on the way farther side of the park, and we go out and we're behind kind of some bushes and trees in the park, and we start throwing apples at Old Joe's car. I know. It's like, it's a terrible thing.
Terrible.
It's a terrible thing, but Old Joe. So we're hitting the car, we're laughing and carrying on, and he gets out and he says, "You little sons of bitches!" And he's cussing. No. He's cussing. We're just laughing.
He see you?
We're 50 yards away. So yeah, he sees us.
He's gotcha.
Well, then here we are, and the next thing I know, I see something come up in the air, and Kelly says, "Oh, he's got a bat! Run, boys, run!" Uh-oh. And then, pow, pow, pow!
Oh!
It was a .22 rifle, and he was shooting at us.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, shooting. We hauled ass. I mean, slid
The
behind
apples were
trees.
insufficient.
Yeah. We just all started running. Everyone's run. We're behind trees and looking out, and he finally gets back in his car and slams the door, and we got out of there. But yeah, that was
when the shots started ringing out. Was it like a cartoon and you're like, let's get out of here, or were you like really afraid? Because I would have been terrified.
Oh, I was, yeah, because we had no.
The hilarity dissipated quickly.
Oh yeah, it wasn't fun anymore. it was suddenly, this is a real situation, and we were being shot at, and someone could die here. So
wow.
And it was like the cartoon thing, and we just turned. We were running as fast as we could.
Did you serpentine? What was your method?
I just ran a straight line to the nearest tree, and I remember just sliding and going behind the tree and getting back there, and then just waiting, and all of us looking like we're 20 yards from each other now. We just scattered, wow. And then we all make our way back to Kelly's truck and got out of there. And I mean, that's a great story now, but hilarious. Man, what a like you said, old Joe got his revenge.
He's like, did you ever tell your parents about that?
I don't think so. I've ever told that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if that would be one that'd be like, come home. Hey mom, guess what? I was throwing apples at old Joe and he shot at me.
He shot at us. Look, he winged me.
Just a flesh wound. Just a flesh wound.
Our insurance is paid up though, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was one of the scary times, but just a great memory now. But it's like all those things that you just stupid stuff you did.
What about a story? So this is a story that I heard at like a big family gathering at your parents' house years ago, and I think I know it pretty well, but I would love to hear it again. So the story goes, and I'll tell a very vague version of it so you can fill in the details. Basically, one late night, you got your car stuck in the. So you got your. You'll have to fill it, but you got your car stuck.
Yep.
And it's really late at night, so you go home. And you wake up your dad really sneakily. You tell him what's going on.
That's not entirely it. Yeah.
Okay. But you'll tell that part. And then, but the end of it was somehow your mom didn't know what was going on that night.
She never knew.
And you didn't tell her for
years. Years. Yeah.
Okay. So so tell the actual story because I must not know it as well as I thought.
So we're out cruising town, and I was dating a girl named Kelly McCulloch then, and she and I
dating a guy named Kelly.
So I was an outcast. But
anyway, so you have a girlfriend.
Yeah. And so we're cruising, and it gets to be like 11 something. And the route I was telling you about from the bowling alley down there
to the Sonic,
the Sonic back and forth, it was about 2 miles total. And there was a place you could drive off, and it was like a goat path that went from kind of out on one end of town, but you went behind the Bell Motel, and it would come out back kind of over by the Sonic, and it was like a half a mile, and people would go back there, go parking and stuff, go back to make out and all. So Kelly and I decided that's what we're going to do. We go down. It would have been raining, and we got down to one part of it, and I drove a 71 Ford Maverick then. Oh, nice. And then we get down in there.
I have no idea what that looks like, but it sounds cool.
It was awesome. Yeah, very cool car. But and so we get down in there, and I feel my car start to slide a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm trying to get out, and then it just goes, and I mean, it sunk to the axles. It was sitting down, the body of the car is down in this mud, and we could not get it out. So now I'm with my date.
Yeah.
And it's muddy. We have to hike out of there.
Oh no.
We're a quarter mile in. Oh. We get out to the Bell Motel Park. I see Timmy Jackson, who had this really cool like 70 Cuda, this black Cuda, and I see Timmy. I start waving. He pulls in, and first thing out of his mouth is hysterical laughter.
Oh,
you dummies, we're muddy. And he said, "Where's your car?" And he thinks this is the funniest thing ever. And I said, "Man, can you come?" He goes, "I'm not getting in there to pull you out. No way." And I said, "Well, can you give us a ride then?" So we take Kelly home. He takes me home. By now, it's
let me ask you this: how was she? This is like a good relationship test. How was she handling it? Was she freaking out? Did she have a good attitude about it?
She had a good attitude about it. I remember her just looking at me like, so, and saved her from my advances.
Maybe that's why she was so disappointed.
Yeah.
She wanted the advance.
She did kiss me goodnight, and she went home. Yeah, we got her home on time. 'Cause that was the other thing. It's getting towards curfew. I mean, she has to be home by midnight.
You're still like in high school.
Yeah, we're in high school.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I have to get her home on time. Then I get home, I mean, just at midnight. Timmy drops.
So you got home in time as well?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Mom and Dad are still up. They're sitting in the living room watching TV, and I walk in. Hey, how's it going? I tell them, oh, good. Kelly and I had a guy. Oh, yeah, we like her. She's a nice girl. Just a normal conversation.
And you haven't told them about the car yet?
No. And the living room's here, and then you had to go around, and it's not like kitchen and living room are all one space now, like most houses. You had to go around the corner. The kitchen was a separate area. So I just happened to catch my dad's eyes. I walked out of the room, going to the kitchen. I went like this, and
oh no! So as you're walking around the corner, like out of view of your mom,
out of view of mom. Really? Oh. So he comes in, and I tell him, and his reaction, just like he
starts laughing.
He goes,
"That's a cool dad move."
Yeah, he goes, "Okay."
Cool dad move.
He said, "So the car's still?" I said, "The car's there. Timmy brought me home." He said, "Okay." Kelly's like, "Yeah, everything's cool, Dad." I said, "Just the car's stuck." He said, "Okay, I'm gonna get you up early in the morning."
Oh my god!
And we'll go get the car out. So he wakes me up at like 6:30 and this is now Sunday morning. Okay. He wakes me up early, and he said, "Come on, we're gonna go." And we got down, and he had this chain and tow strap, and we pulled it out, took it to the car wash, washed it all off, and checked, made sure everything was okay, nothing was broken. We come home, and then grandma doesn't get up till like 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. He goes, "Well, what are you guys doing up so early?" La la la. I said, "Oh, just woke up." La la. Never told her. That was our little secret. Just a dad thing, that mom never knew about.
Father son, like, listen, buddy.
Oh gosh, it was at least 10 years before KK ever knew that story.
And the way I remember, like it just kind of like came up in conversation, right?
And she was going, "What?"
You never told her.
Yeah, and she was going, "What? When did this happen?" She goes,
"That is awesome."
Yeah. So now it's just a fun, great memory now. But I haven't seen Kelly McCulloch in years. She still lives in Lebanon, but I haven't seen her in years and years. So yeah.
That is a great story. Yeah. Like just the classic teenage son gets in a pickle and is like, "You know what? I'm just
gonna call Dad.
Just gonna call Dad. We're gonna figure this out."
Yep.
And I love that he just cracked up laughing. Was like, because I'm sure that's a moment as a dad. Like now, you as a dad, where you see yourself in your son.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
Listen.
And he didn't. I mean, because I hadn't done anything wrong, really. It wasn't like I'd gotten, "Dad, hey, I need to tell you, my car got impounded. I went to jail," and so nothing
"Hey, Dad, remember when old Jim shot at us? I went back and murdered him."
Yeah. And he goes, and see, he didn't even know about the trail that went back. He goes, "Where is it?" It's like, "Where is this car?"
Like,
and we drove back in there.
You've never parked.
Yeah. And when we drove back in there, he goes, "You should never drive through here. You should never bring your car back here."
Dad, that's in the past.
Yeah, I know. I'm learning as we go, Dad. Yeah. So that was a good, fun high school story. But,
I had because that's like a perfect dad moment where like your dad is you're like, "Yes, I know, I get it. I did something stupid,"
Yeah.
And I was in the car with Paige the other day, my girlfriend, and I said something that was like, I've heard you say for years, and I always thought to myself, like, I don't know why he always says that, and like it always bothers him. There was a car that just on a city road zipped right past me up to and there's a stoplight at like a quarter of a mile, and I'm like, "Oh, look at this guy in a hurry. We'll see him at the stoplight." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "Like, what am I doing?"
I call it racing to the red light. Yeah,
I was like, "My dad's been saying." And I told Paige, like, "My dad has been saying that for my entire life," and I always thought, like, "Why does he care so much?" And then it happened. I was like, "Oh no, it's happening."
But you realize that it's like, what are you doing? It's like, don't you see you're passing me at 60 miles an hour on a city street just so you can go up there and go, and we'll come up next to you and go.
But it was really funny. So
the dad-isms.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, I know that there was a lot more that happened in high school, but I'm really more curious about, long story short, you moved away from home really young and moved to Las Vegas, of all places, like small town Lebanon, Missouri, to big city that never sleeps, Las Vegas. So what age did that happen at, first of all? What age?
Well, I graduated high school. I was 17 and a half.
Okay.
2 weeks later, me and Robert Eady, who was my best friend through senior year and my running buddy, he had an uncle that lived out there that he barely knew.
Okay.
But we thought, well, this will be great. We'll just pack up all our stuff and we'll go to Vegas.
So when you, at this juncture, when you're leaving for Las Vegas, is it more like, I want a sense of adventure, I want to get away from home? Are you like trying to escape something and leave something behind, or are you more concerned with running towards something in your future, or is it more just like you're just in the moment thinking, well, how cool would this be?
That's a lot of it. And then looking back now, I think because of being so much younger than everyone, I was smaller, a late bloomer and all that. I was little Chucky to a lot of the kids older than me. When I was a sophomore and junior and running with this, I still ran with kids older than me. I always ran with the juniors and seniors, even when I was a sophomore, you know, and they were my friends. But I was little Chuck or little Chucky, you know, the stigma
because
of
not
that.
Not only were you like a grade younger, but since you had started,
I was physically smaller. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you wanted a fresh start or a little bit of an image rehab.
Yeah, and I just ready to get out of small town Lebanon, Missouri, where everybody knows your business, everybody knows what's going on, and you know, through just stuff that I did, you know, brought on myself, you know, behaviors and being part of the party group, you know, and all that stuff. Didn't have a great reputation there, and didn't see. I mean, I could go work at the car lots because Lebanon, Missouri at one time had 98 used car dealers.
What? You said there was like 20,000 people there?
Yeah, because Lebanon, Missouri, Springfield, Kansas City, and St. Louis. There were major auto auctions in Springfield, Kansas City, and St. Major auto auctions. So Lebanon, Missouri became like this hub of used car dealers and car dealers running cars back and forth. And they would, back then you could pull, they were mechanical speedometers on the old cars. So a lot of these dealers, they were pulling the speedometers out and knocking 20, 30,000 miles off of this.
You mean an odometer?
Odometer, yeah, not speedometer.
Okay,
yeah,
so
odometer. I'm sorry.
Like a used car, and they're winding back the odometer.
Yes, it has 70, 80,000 miles on it, and turning it back up. Hey, she's a cherry, man. 32,000 miles, 32,000 original miles on this 68 Cutlass. You know, she's a cherry. You know, and then.
That reminds me of that scene from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah,
when
they're trying to go backwards. Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah, but they would actually disassemble the dash, take the odometer out, reset the miles, put it back in. And there were guys that were being paid like $50 a car to do this. And there was a whole black market thing going on in Lebanon, Missouri. And it was about 2 years after I left that, you know, he said, well, the FBI is here finally. The FBI came to Lebanon, Missouri, and there were 5 guys that actually went to federal prison for this, because I mean, it's a big deal, a federal crime. It's fraud, you know, basically. And then a whole bunch of dealers got in trouble and all that. But imagine this tiny little town with almost 100 used car dealers and stolen cars, car parts being black marketed, odometer setting and all that stuff. Yeah. And people making tons of money, and that's what I did through high school. I worked at the car lots and cleaned cars and all that. I never did get in part of the illegal parts of it, but yeah. But so anyway, just needed to get out of there. You know, I wanted to do something. And Robert had this uncle in Las Vegas, so we both had a car. We loaded up everything we could, and we drove to Las Vegas. Took us 2 days to get out there.
Wow!
And then rolled in, got a motel room. We both, I think I had about $800.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And in 1977.
I was going to say, that's got to be.
It was a lot of money because, you know, and then after about the third day there, we found an apartment that was $200 a month.
Wow.
So $100 a piece. You know, we could make that. And then I immediately went to a car lot and said, hey, I've got lots of experience cleaning cars and being around the car business. Got a job right away.
Wow.
Yeah, Robert went to work. His uncle got him a job at Caesar's Palace. And
it sounds like you guys, well, first of all, what did your parents think of you going out there?
Well, absolutely hated it and were heartbroken. Yeah.
Whoa.
And I know now, having kids and seeing you guys leave home and go do stuff, I just can't even imagine what my mom was going through.
Really?
Just how the despair and the anguish and the anxiety and the
Why
fear.
Why would you be despaired? Like
because I'm 17 years old, leaving home, dumbass kid. You know, I have no life experience outside Lebanon, Missouri, and I'm moving to Las Vegas. You know, anything could happen. It's 1,000 miles away, 1,500 miles away. You know,
but I mean, I can understand like maybe like anxiety or nervousness for her son, but despair, like would she really be really sad about it?
Oh yeah, it was very upsetting for her.
Man.
Yeah.
But it sounds like when you got out there that like I know some. You said dumbass kids. I know some dumbass kids. If they had $800, they would have just blown it and party. But you guys got an apartment and you got a job. The next week.
Yeah, we went out there and we established ourselves. And I lived there for 3 years. I was never 21 when I lived in Las Vegas.
That is amazing. So you never got? Did you ever get to like gamble at all? Like sneak in or anything? Or
Your grandpa came out. Pa came out once, and he and I went down to Old Vegas like you and I did that time.
Yeah.
And we're standing there playing slot machines, and no one bothered us, anything like that. But there are a couple of times I tried to go in and play slot machines and stuff, and they just walk up and ask you for your ID, and if you don't have it or you're under 21, they just tell you to leave, just kick you out. But there were certain times, I mean, like on Friday and Saturday nights, you didn't go because that's when high security was on. That's when all the tourists were there.
Okay.
So you could go on like a Sunday or a Tuesday or something and just be over in a corner somewhere and play some slot machines. But it didn't have at 18, 19 years old, I didn't care anything about gambling. It was just something to go get away with.
And I'm sure you couldn't go do the table games, which are way more fun.
Yeah, way more fun, and it just got boring. So actually the Strip becomes, when you live there, the Strip becomes like a novelty. It's like someplace you go
like
to.
The locals are kind of
been
there, done that.
Yeah, if you live there, it's just there all the time. It's just, you see it all the time and all that. So we just worked and
that's like people that live in New York City and they've like never seen the Statue of Liberty or gone to the top of the Empire State Building and stuff like that.
Yeah, because
they're just like, why? Well, I don't care.
Yeah, or they did it once when they were a kid. They're never going to do it again. They're looking for different things, and just like us living here. We've got all this downtown stuff, but there's just things you do and don't do.
Yeah.
So anyway, lived out there for 3 years and then came back to Lebanon, stayed about a month. And then that's when another good friend of mine from high school, Mark Reesner, he and his brother had come out to Woodward, Oklahoma, which is out in the Panhandle.
So wait, real quick, leaving Vegas.
Yeah.
What was so you're out there, you said you had kind of gone out there just for some adventure to get out of Lebanon. Yeah. Why did you end up leaving? Like, what was did it just like not become not fun anymore? What was your goals at the time?
I was just, the truth is I'd gotten in with a bad crowd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was headed for bigger trouble, because in the late 70s, the mafia ran Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So there was tons of cocaine and prostitution, all this stuff, and I kind of was on the fringe of knowing people in that stuff and kind of that, and got somewhat involved in it, but not to a degree that I was going to be going to prison or anything. I just knew I was in trouble. I wasn't being myself.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put it. Now, so at that time, even though you were on the fringes of the wrong crowd, making questionable decisions, you saw yourself as something different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was there a singular moment or wake up call when you were like, man, this isn't me. I want to be doing something else. Or was it just like an accumulation of unease over time?
The accumulation, probably the last 6 months I was there, I was just floundering and had been doing concrete and construction work at that time and liked that work, and learned a lot. And, but it just became where I knew I didn't belong there, and I
like
say it this
fish
way.
Out of water.
Yeah. And this, to make another point about young people, the best thing if I could give advice now from where I am, looking at kids in high school and all that, is be who you're meant to be, because I was always trying to be something else, something I wasn't.
Okay.
I thought I can be a big shot in this, and I'll go, and be something. But that's not who I was meant to be. Now that I found this career that I have now, it suits me. Yeah. It's good for me. It's healthy for me. It's mentally and physically and spiritually healthy for me. And all the things I was doing there weren't healthy decisions, even though I wasn't like in big trouble, not going to die or go to prison or anything. It just wasn't a healthy environment.
Yeah.
I needed more to be in something without all these. Just imagine Las Vegas even now. There's every temptation you can imagine is there.
Distractions,
and if you have no filter and no discipline and you're 19 years old and it's all right there in front of you, it's hard to pull yourself out of that and be, just who you're meant to be. And that's what I say, trying to be other people, trying to fit into places I didn't belong and didn't feel right, and trying to force that. It was just time to leave.
Okay.
So came back and at
that time when you left, were you still living with that best friend guy?
Oh, no. We worked together. We stayed together for about a year, and then he and I tried to work together. I actually bought a dump truck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and we had a dump truck, but then he and I just started arguing and fighting and just and a big falling out, and then
a big falling out.
Just where we weren't even friends anymore for a long time, and I haven't seen Robert in probably 40 years, and he's in Lebanon. He's back in Lebanon and went back there. Yeah, he came back.
Did you guys ever reconcile or patch things up at all, or
to a degree? I mean, I saw him once when I came back, and it was like, hey, we were old friends and stuff, but it wasn't ever like it was. I mean,
Gotcha.
It's like your best friend, and then you're just, it's just you're not anymore. And I'm sure now we're two completely different people.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
but I'm sure it's like, I'm sure it, it's like your high school best friend isn't always going to be your best friend for life.
Right.
But I'm, like, looking back, do you wish it would have gone down differently, or was it just one of those things that, like, in life,
it was just two immature guys trying to do big grown-up stuff, and we just didn't know how to handle it, because Robert had a lot more skill at the concrete and brickwork and stuff we were doing, but I was smarter with the money and all that kind of stuff, and it just became a conflict if I was, when we were working together, for him to boss me and tell me this was one thing, but then if I tried to tell him about the money and stuff, then it felt like I was bossing him, and so it just became a power struggle, and it just didn't work out.
Sounds kind of like one of those things where the idea of it, two guys in Lebanon going out to Vegas and making their way, sounds great, but then it's like the practicality of it and the actual logistics and ongoing. And
just, we were immature, we were Robert's a year older than me, so he would use that as, look, I'm older than you, I'm smarter, it's like, okay, you're a year older than me. This great life experience of yours is not.
It's like, if I remember correctly, what did you do the year after you graduated waiting for my ass? You sat in Lebanon, bro.
Yeah,
we came out here at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, he was just waiting for me to graduate. So
you leave Vegas, you go back home, but you said you're only there for like a month?
Probably stayed at KK and Pa's house, mom and dad's house, for a few weeks, and I had some other friends that lived up by St. Louis.
Well, let me ask you this: so you get back home, what was the homecoming like? Were you are you coming back home as like a fallen soldier coming
a little
back to
tail between your legs,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
kind of. Even though you had done pretty well for yourself.
Yeah, but I came back with nothing more than what I'd left with. I hadn't made a fortune, but and just
what were your parents' reactions?
Oh, from relief to glad I was back, and glad I was not still in Vegas, and and just happy that I was home. They were glad to see me, glad I was back, and just kind of waiting to see what I was going to do next. And there was some, a decompression time of kind of getting back in the groove with them, and
what's it like to go stay with your? And I've experienced this as well. So like, what's it like to go from, you're out in the world totally fending for yourself, and at that time there's no like texting and FaceTiming and stuff, so you're probably talking to them a lot less. You're like your own person. You come back after 3 years. Yeah. Are they still treating you like you're their son, or are they like, is it a tough transition between like you're an adult but still their son? Like, what's that like?
Well, Dad will refer to it as like the prodigal son. He went and sowed all his oats and all that, and comes back and gets himself together. And and so this was a big turning point, coming back from Vegas and getting out of that environment and coming back.
So he was happy you had left
Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were both.
That's what I mean. Yeah, happy you would come back.
Yeah, they were both very happy I wasn't out there anymore. Because, like I said, I would only talk to them on the phone like every 8 or 10 days, Yeah. So they got just little bits and pieces. Of course, I would time it to where I was having a great day. That's when you call, hey, man, everything's wonderful, la, la, la. But, there was just like any time, we've all gone through it when you're growing up. There are times when you're...
So there were low periods out there?
Yeah, just doubting times and, and periods of, between friends and stuff. When Robert and I, our friendship ended, then I went and you had, find someplace else to live, and you're making a new circle of friends. So, there's all that awkwardness and all that. And that's just, everybody goes through it, and it's just... You learn how to get through it and cope with it, and
just because everybody goes through it doesn't make it any less like real when you're
real and traumatic, and all that. And you periods of loneliness and just doubt and all that, just like everyone experiences. But coming back, it was like I look back on it now, and such a joyful thing that to know, and just like I hope you know this, you're welcome at my house anytime throughout your entire life, and that's how I was treated when I came back, even though. I would think they were probably very disappointed that I went to Las Vegas. And if I'd have made a big splash out there and done well, they'd have been very happy for me. Yeah. But since that wasn't happening and I came home, they were very happy to have me back and just now encourage me and say, okay, what's next? What do we do now? And so
I do know that, like, from my perspective, even though this is about you, like you say, me being welcome at home anytime, I never know what to think of it, because you left home and made something of yourself at such a young age. Yeah. And, here I am, I lived away during school and, played professional golf in other countries for a little while. But, now I'm back at home in my 20s, and you were out on your own making your own way at 17. So I often wonder, if there's a part of you that's disappointed that I haven't, moved off somewhere and, done all that for myself.
No, not at all, because you've been spared from a lot of those hard lessons of hitting bottom and just having to come. You never came home with your tail between your legs, like I failed out there. I need to get out of there. And
felt like I have plenty of times.
Yeah, but I'm sure it wasn't as dramatic as maybe I make it sound, but it was a very big deal and a big turning point because, like I said, when I came back, your dad, your grandpa allowed me to work for him for a few weeks. I made some money, so I'd have money in my pocket, and he allowed me to do some
boxcars unloading for him.
Yeah, because at that time their antique business was thriving, and mom was kind of the brains of the outfit, and she was the sales. She's a great salesperson and real people. Super people person. She ran the shop and all that. And she did a lot of the buying.
Left, how was their business doing?
Doing well. I mean, they were doing very well. Yeah. And this is the thing too. It was kind of at that time that they were really becoming successful, and I left.
So what was it like to leave, and not that you failed, but leave and kind of come back as a lateral move, and to see that what they had started building had only continued to build?
It was great. I mean, it's just great to see them doing so well, and I never had to worry about my mom and dad. And they weren't drinkers or partiers. They had friends that they played cards with. They both bowled and had bowling league and all that stuff, and dad was on city council. That's pretty cool. They were a pretty big deal in Lebanon at that time. When they were in their 40s at the time, and they were a big deal there.
Bowling league just sounds awesome.
Yeah. And so anyway, I bowled some with them and all that. But anyway, then I was there for less than 2 months, and went and stayed with some friends up by St. Louis with that money in my pocket, and trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And
now, when you left again, were they like happier? They're like, okay, you're figuring out, or did they wish you had stayed longer? What was that?
Because I didn't have any kind of plan. I mean, it's just like if you just say, well, I'm just going to go here now and I'm going to try this, and you worry about your kids no matter how old they are, and so they were still worried and trying to let me, but they allowed me that space and enough rope to hang yourself, as they say. So did that, and stayed up by St. Louis, and one of my thoughts at that time, I remember clearly, I was going to go back to Vegas. I had that money in my pocket, and I thought, I'll just go back out there. I know I can do it right this time. There's that pride and arrogance in me again, thinking I just got off track. If I go back, it'll be way different this time.
Go back and do what exactly?
Just do it right. Start, get a good job. Stay away from the wrong people, because I knew good people out there, and had worked for a guy that, told me if I ever came back, he'd sure take me back as an employee. That was one thing. I was always a good employee. I was someone, no matter what was going on, I was on time. I worked hard, did my job, didn't complain.
That's something that not only have you exhibited, but have instilled in me, like the importance of, I remember like something you had said, and you've repeated it over the years. And when I was younger, I didn't quite understand like how true it was. I just thought, well, duh. But you always said like 50% of any success in life is just showing up.
Yep.
And that,
if not more,
you have been the king. Like when I think of like qualities that define you, I think of consistency, reliability, dependability. Just somebody like, if you say you're going to do something, it's gonna get done. You're where you say you're going to be when you say you're going to be there. And so it doesn't surprise me that was something that you had built from a young age, and because it's like that is one of the things you've really instilled into my sister and I, and so it doesn't surprise me at all that like bosses would love you working for them, people would love working with you, employees would love working for you. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Thanks.
Oh.
Yeah, those are the things I look for in people I want to work with me and be around. And as you get older, you change your standard of who you're going to hang with.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's hard at times. Like, was it hard to kind of start asking yourself, like, all right, I got to start, seeking out these kind of people. Even like, were there any friendships besides the guy you moved to Vegas with that grew apart just because you were like, man, I got to start hanging with a different type of person.
Well, and that's where I was going with this when I stayed up by St. Louis with that, and they were a young married couple that had gone to high school with the girl, and they had a nice little life up there in this little town called Union, Missouri, which is like 45 minutes from St. Louis. It was still just another little town. I just went up there just to hang out and chill and figure out what to do next, but I saw no opportunity there. It's just a place to be for a while. Not with my parents, not in Vegas, just a place to be. And so from there, came back to Lebanon, and because like I said, Mark and David Reesner, they'd grown up basically catty corner across the street from us, and they had gone to Oklahoma to Woodward and started a well service company of their own. I mean, we were working, and they were going to start their own deal.
That's like oil fields.
Yeah, oil field. Yeah, so working the oil field, and just hung out with Mark for a while he was here. He said, "Man, I'm going back in a week." He said, "There's jobs everywhere out there," and this was 1982, 83.
So it was
booming at that time, and so. I said, yeah, that sounds like another adventure to me.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it. I pack up stuff, and now I moved to Woodward, Oklahoma,
So how long were you with the couple in St. Louis for?
Oh, a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by the time you moved to Woodward, you've only been out of Vegas like 4 months.
4 or 5 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that'd be right. It was, because that was summer. Yeah. So about 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And then moved to Woodward.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
do you, looking back on that time, do you feel that, because you said in Vegas you had, you used the phrase hit bottom, but it sounds like you just kind of come to like a little bit of, internal crisis of like, this isn't what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
So you go home, you go stay with some friends, and then you go out to Woodward. Do you think that 4 months was like enough time to get back on your feet and decide the next thing? Or do you wish maybe you'd had a little more foresight? Or do you think that, quick action and decisiveness has been always like a positive?
It works out that way. And it's funny because I look back on life, and I say this to people too. If you look back on your life, and the ebb and flow of your life, there's always the crisis, and then a struggle time, and you go through hard things, and then you come out of it, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I think at this age now that I can say is I don't worry as much because I know things are going to work out. It's good, even when things are hard. That's when okay, this isn't the end.
Yeah.
This isn't the do all be all, time to kill myself. It's going to be okay. You just got to keep moving forward, keep going forward, and put one foot in front of the other, that kind of thing. Because when I got to Woodward, well, now the oil field, you're thrown into a man's world.
Okay. And you're 20.
I just turned 21.
Okay.
Just turned 21. So now I'm out of Vegas. I'm 21 now. Yeah. So I can drink. And pretty much Woodward, Oklahoma, that is, you'd work 80 to 100 hours a week.
Whoa.
Yeah. There were times.
Like physical.
Yeah. There were times I go on overtime by Wednesday evening. You'd leave at 6 in the morning, go out to because we worked well service, which not the big drilling rigs. The drilling rigs had what they called towers or tours where they had 3 shifts.
Okay.
3 8-hour shifts. And you guys would work 8 hours, and another group would come in.
Somebody's on it 24/7.
Yeah. Somebody's on those 24/7. On ours, it was you go out in the morning, and they're called workover rigs. The drilling team has already drilled the well. It's there. And these are production rigs. So they put in big casings, and you run another pipe, a smaller pipe down inside that, and that's where the oil comes out of. Okay. So you come and make the well produce. So they've drilled the hole. They moved the big rig off of there. You come in, and you're the production crew. Well, there are no hours for that. Sometimes I've gone out on jobs that we were there for half a day and got things done and pulled up and moved to another one and gone out and stayed on a certain location for 3 or 4 months.
Whoa.
Just depends on what is going on in the well and what the...
So you're just there until the oil's gone.
Well, and what you do, we would drive in and out depending how far away it was from Woodward. If it was more than about an hour and a half away, you'd still drive home every night.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But further than an hour and a half or a little further away, because I worked all over southern Kansas, all over the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, up for northwest Oklahoma. I mean, sometimes you'd be 2 hours from home, and it'd be 6, 7 o'clock before you'd get off the job that day. Well, you can't drive home, so they'd get you a motel and you'd stay.
Yeah.
And sometimes you had your clothes with you. Sometimes you didn't. You'd just wear the clothes you had.
Yeah.
And,
so it's like a 24/7. You're either like working on the well or sleeping or driving.
Yeah.
So not much time for anything else.
Yeah, during the week. But we got probably one of the cushiest deals. There was a guy named Don Fackler. I'll never forget him. He's passed away now. This is years ago. But he was the company man, who is the man representing, like if it's Exxon is the one that owns the well, and they're producing
He's
it.
like their representative.
He works,
Okay.
and he's the one on site making decisions about the daily operation of that well and what's going to happen next. And there's the company man, there's the well service guy, there's the wireline guy, there's the downhole guy, the tool guy. There's all kinds of people involved in this making decisions. The geologists who are telling you where the oil is, all that. And so Don Fackler, he was a Christian family man, and he wanted us there at 7:30 every morning on the well job site, and we didn't work past 6 o'clock unless something was going on.
Okay.
And he would stop us in the middle of certain things. He said, "Guys, this can wait till the morning. Let's get out of here, get a good night's sleep, be back here at 7:30." And
very nice.
I was on a crew of good guys, and we were never late, and did exactly what he wanted all the time. He loved us, and he kept us. We worked for him probably on a dozen different wells over about 8 months, and he was our guy, man. He was great to work for. Yeah,
Well, it sounds like that was a very mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
Where
yeah. He trusted us and knew.
He gave you the credit and the trust because you guys consistently showed up on time and did what you needed to do.
Yeah, because David Reesner, Mark's younger brother, who was a year younger than me, was the rig operator. I mean, David was really sharp. He's a good guy and good to work for. And he and Don Fackler had a great relationship. And David kept a crew. It was me, Terry Decker, who who I went to high school with, and another guy named Larry Ball. And the four of us were the crew on that rig. And we all had the same understanding. Hey, don't screw this up. Man, we got a great deal
was the
here.
Money pretty good?
Oh yeah. Well, I tell it like this. I made my first full year out there. I made $32,000, and that was like all the money. That's a ton of money. But
at that time, that's a pretty good amount, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a great stereo. Had a nice car. I had a motorcycle. I had no money. So I just bought stuff. And then the only thing entertainment there was going to the bars, and there were several, and one of them was the OFT, and that stood for oil field trash. Yeah. And the funny thing was, in that time, Woodward County was a dry county, which meant you could not a dry county. It was I forget what the term for it was, but you actually bought your bottle of whiskey, and we drank Crown Royal.
Okay.
And you'd take your bottle into the bar. They didn't have any liquor. They had the mixers. They had to mix your drink for you with your bottle. We had our name. Our bottle was Al Capone. So
that's such an interesting concept.
Al Capone, and you paid $1 per drink for them to pour it in the glass and put ice in it or lemon or whatever.
Their whole business concept was just like
have a place,
building that you could go and hang out with people.
And they had a jukebox and a dance floor, and it was a small place. But the problem with Woodward and the oil field at that time was there were about 17 men to every woman.
Oh, gosh.
Because it was booming. So all these guys were coming there to work.
That was rough.
And there were, and maybe 10 of these girls were really attractive.
Yeah. And there's hundreds of you guys.
Yeah. And just, I was in multiple fights and altercations and always arguments. And there was like our group of guys, there was probably a dozen enough that were pretty tight in our group. And there's another group, there's like 10 or 12 of those guys are pretty rough guys and kind of biker types, and we got in scuffles with them,
like actual fist fights.
A couple of times, a couple of times,
awesome.
So, and it would be
like the movies.
Yeah, and I remember once coming out of the OFT because I looked around, and went, "Where's everybody at?" Because I'd gone to the bathroom, came out, and our table was empty. And I walk outside, and here's this guy named Rebel, and that was what he went by. Because I actually talked to him once, and I said, "I see you here all the time." I said, "What's your name?" He goes, "Rebel." I said, "Oh, cool. Hey, Rebel, nice to meet you."
He introduced himself as Rebel?
Yeah, and that was his name. That was on his jacket. He was a Harley guy. And
you know what I've always found interesting about those guys? It's like their persona is so tough, but if you break down certain aspects of their personality, he made himself a nickname.
Yeah.
He monogrammed it on a jacket, and he introduces himself by his nickname.
Yeah.
That could easily fall into the sissy boy category, but he just so happens to be putting off this tough guy persona.
And he was. I mean, he was kind of a badass. I mean, he was well respected, and and all that. And I'm just the type of guy. I just don't have a problem with people. I don't care who you
really
are.
Don't, yeah.
But the rest of my group was MF reload, and I was like, why are we scuffling with these guys?
Yeah.
We're all in the same crappy little town, chasing after the same skanky women.
Yeah.
Every weekend we do this.
Yeah.
It's like, aren't
Were
you
the
guys
fights always over women or just?
Oh, just territory, just BS stuff that and because I remember once there was, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was like your size, I mean, big guy, and I was just standing there and I was just looking across the room, just kind of figuring out who was over in the corner, and I just happened to catch eyes with him, and he's going,
he's staring you down.
He's just staring at me. He goes, "What are you looking at?"
No way.
So I'm just looking around. He goes, "Well, look over there." I said,
"What?
I'm looking over here right now." Oh man! So he gets up and and our table empties and there's
sets off that. Easy?
Oh gosh, yeah, just anything like that. Yeah. So
that is great.
Yeah, no, that reminded me of another story, a funny story that I was playing pool. There was a pool hall there too, and you've seen me play pool. I'm pretty good. I mean, I just good. That was the one thing I was pretty good at, and so I'm out and trying to hustle a few bucks, and I'm playing this guy, and I'd never seen him before, and it was weird because when you saw somebody you never seen before in Woodward, Oklahoma, it's like,
when you say hustle a few bucks, would you hustle people like do bad and then do good, or would you just say play me for money and I'll try to beat you?
A little bit, mostly just play me for money. I'll try to beat you, and I'd watch different tables and say, this guy thinks he's really good and he's not. I'd put my quarter on that table, and at most I ever won maybe $20, $25 bucks.
I mean, that's like $100 now.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun money, just money I could blow on, stuff.
Yeah.
But so I'm playing this guy, and we'd played a game, and I said, "What's your name?" He goes, "Bob." Bad Bob. That was my reaction. I started laughing. He goes, "You think that's funny?" I said, "Yeah, that is." I said, "It really is kind of funny. You introduce yourself as Bad Bob." I said, how am I supposed to react?
And you said it like James Bond.
Yeah. I said, am I supposed to react in fear? And he just kind of got pissy after that.
Oh no!
And I beat him that game, and he left. And so I for some reason that always stuck in my head. I just thought, because he goes, "Bob." Bad Bob.
Bad Bob.
He was like my size, and that's like, okay, Bad Bob.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Because I just laughed. He goes, "You think that's funny?" I said, "Yeah, it kind of is."
So at that time in your life, how long were you in that area? You talked about being on the one guy's crew for 8 months. You were there for 3 years.
Yeah, I was there 3 years. Yeah, I first worked in at Halliburton with the wireline service, and that's where they run tools down the hole to do different things to make the well produce. Worked for Hodges Trucking for just about 4 or 5 months and learned how to operate a crane and different things. So but then
you have all these like practical construction skills. Like that's
and that was kind of the fun of it. I liked learning new stuff and doing different things. And then about the guys I worked when I wasn't on David's crew anymore.
Yeah.
Actually, before I got it, that's right. Because this was like my first on a rig, because I'd worked for Halliburton and Hodges before I actually went out and worked on an actual oil rig.
Okay.
And my first crew, I worked with these two brothers, and they were Cajuns.
Oh,
these guys from southern Louisiana. And first of all, they're nuts.
Yes.
They're just a little bit.
I've been to southern Louisiana. It's crazy.
They're just a little different. And
Tom Segura has a stand-up bit, and he said, he was like, I got in trouble because I was calling people retarded. And, usually I don't apologize for things like that, but I did some soul searching, and I realized that what I meant was Cajun.
Well, the thing about these two guys, they weren't dummies. They were really good oil field hands. They knew how to run a rig.
They were just a little crazy.
Well, the thing was, if they liked you, they would kill for you. I mean, seriously, they were those kind of guys. They were loyal, and you don't mess with this. He's part of us. I mean, he's part. And they liked me because I came, I kept my mouth shut, I did my work.
And everybody kind of likes you. You just have that way about you.
Well, thank you, but it was just one. I was young then too, and cocky and all that, and I just did my work, and they put me in the derrick where you're latching the tongs onto the pipe and all that stuff, and I made a pretty good derrick hand for them, and so they had some respect for me. But they were, gosh, I was 22, and I think Larry was one of those older brothers named Larry. I can't remember the other one's name, but they were both probably around 30.
Okay, so they were a little
and
older.
looked 50.
Oh,
I mean, hard drinking, weed smoking, party guys, and just hard language and just anything you can imagine about
stereotype.
A crazy Cajun oil field guy that's been doing it for 10 years and looks like he's 100 years old. But tough as nails, and if they didn't like you, It was trouble. I mean, you just better not even look their way because they would fight at the drop of the hat. Wow. You know, yeah, they were just that kind of guys. And the first week or so I worked for them, I'm going to lie. I mean, I was a little scared of these guys.
Yeah,
because they just have that look in their eye, that little crazy look. And say, all right, newbie. Get your ass up there. Let's go. What are you doing? Pick it. Come on. Just on you all the time. And
so you told the story about like the guy in the bar that was like, well, look over there. And are these the type and you were like, well, I'm looking at you. Are these the type of guys that if they said that, you would be like, maybe I won't tangle with them?
Oh, absolutely.
So there was a situation where.
Well, they're the kind of guys who would just stab you in the parking lot. Just serious guys.
So even at that age, you said you were kind of. A little young and reckless, but there were still situations where you'd be like, I better stay away.
Yeah, there are certain guys and you knew who they were in town. There was there's gosh, I can't think of his name. I can see his face, Bobby something, and he was
bad Bob.
Well, Bobby was like 6'6", 240 pounds, big, strong, tough country boy from Oklahoma. He was from Oklahoma, but you just didn't mess with him. I mean, he was the kind of guy, he'd sit there and be laughing with you, and then next thing you know, you'd say something wrong, and he might just hit you in the face.
Oh, my gosh.
He might just knock you off your stand, and challenge you to do something about it, and you just didn't.
That's like that scene from is it Goodfellas when Ray Liotta is telling and he's like, funny how? How am I funny? Yeah. Funny like a clown? Like he just snaps.
Yeah. Just go from, everything's funny. He's like, hey, what do you... Wait, you think I'm funny?
I think I'm stupid. I'm gonna pop you one.
Yeah, just that kind of volatile situations were common. I mean, because
I get all that testosterone, physical work,
and the hours you had to work, and everybody's going out on the Friday and Saturday night to blow off steam and getting drunk.
Much steam to blow off.
Yeah, and everybody had money because the money was good.
Yeah.
So
powder keg situation.
Yeah, powder keg all the time, and like I said, a 7-to-1 ratio on women.
Yeah.
So there was just it was wild.
So this is the final bit of your time in Woodward. This is when, so you're like 24, around 24 at this point?
Let's see, I would in 1983. Yeah, right, about to turn 24, right? Or just turned 24, yeah.
So this is like the time of your life where you're starting to come into your own and you're, before you really started doing some adult stuff. Like what was your exit from because this was your exit from the oil field as well, or just from Woodward?
Both.
Okay.
They concurred because what happened was the boom was starting to be a bust. Everything was falling off. A lot of guys had left. I mean, the work was scarce.
Okay.
And I was only working 3 or 4 days a week, but it was still good money and still surviving. Well, it was on a cold winter's night that we had to go out to the shop at TriStar where I worked, and we had to go in the shop, and there was a propane system in there, and there was some stuff we had to do for our rig for the next day, just getting it ready and different things.
Yeah.
And so it's like 7 o'clock at night, but it's dark because it's winter.
Okay.
And it's really cold. So we're inside, and the propane tanks on we had propane vehicles, and one of them was leaking, and we were messing with that leak, and what we didn't realize is it'd been leaking for a while. So that propane, which is heavier than air, it sinks to the ground. Concrete floor and just imagine a big shop, just a concrete floor, just a big metal building, kind of
like a small warehouse.
Yeah, like a small warehouse, but it's just open where you can drive one of these big semi-sized rigs inside there.
Okay.
So it's a big high ceiling, 20-foot ceilings, and we're in there. So this propane's been going for a while. We're working well. What we didn't know is that the propane was leaking.
Oh, man. And you guys thought it had maybe been leaking for a couple minutes, but it had been leaking for a while.
Who knows? Yeah. There's still no way to tell.
Yeah.
But back in the back corner of the shop where the bathroom was a water heater, gas water heater.
That has a pilot light?
Has a pilot light. And so when that propane reached that flame, just the entire building was just like whoosh.
Oh my
just a huge fireball that lasted about 2 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
So I was wearing a flannel shirt rolled up to my sleeves.
Okay.
And then
about elbow height?
Yeah, right up to my elbows. And then nothing on my face, not wearing a hat or anything. So when this happened, it was just a flash fire, but from all around you.
Oh my gosh.
So both my arms were severely burned. My face just got burned off, basically.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
so like when you say, so basically, because I don't know how propane works. I mean, I'm aware of the dangers of it, but I don't have any practical experience. So there's basically this like gas, like, because it's like heavy.
Right, it's heavier than air, yeah.
So it's just like a gas cloud on the ground.
Yeah.
So as soon as one
invisible,
of the tendrils, as soon as one of the tendrils touches this pilot light, does the whole thing catch fire?
Yeah.
And it happened instantly?
Yeah. It went,
so basically an explosion. You're just standing in an explosion.
I'm standing in an explosion. Yeah, propane exploding.
So the tank itself, does it blow up?
No, because it was just still.
So it doesn't go inside that seal. It's like whatever's sealed, it's just igniting what's there.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And imagine. Well, like our gas stove, when you turn the burner on, you hear the little hiss.
So like that
and
times 1,000.
Yeah, imagine that warehouse size.
Wow.
Yeah.
But once the propane had burned up, did the building catch on fire?
Yeah, that we ran. I mean, like I said, I did a personal best in the 100-yard dash.
So okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to. So the explosion has just happened. Your arms and face are just toasted.
And there's just two of us.
Like
and it was
melted cheese,
and
something.
it was Dave Carey, who was a good friend, and he's actually Terry Decker's cousin.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he and I were the ones out there, and. The next thing we know, we're both outside. We both just ran and got out of the building.
Like adrenaline took over,
boom,
fight or flight.
Fight or flight. And we get out there, and I see Dad say, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He goes, "I think so. I'm okay." I said, "Me too." Well, we didn't realize because of adrenaline and being in shock.
You guys were like hurt.
Oh yeah, our skin was burned off both arms, and Dave had his sleeves rolled down to his wrists, so both of the backs of his hands were burned real bad, and his face was all burnt off.
Oh man!
And so. We're trying to find fire extinguishers on the trucks and other things out there. We pulled like 10 fire extinguishers. One of them worked.
Oh, no.
So by the time we get back over there, I mean, that building's engulfed in flames.
Like, you guys would have failed an inspection badly.
Like peeing on a forest fire. It's like, it's no, we're not doing it. So we just walked away and we heard sirens and said, well, we don't need to call anybody because I think someone has called and said, hey, there's a fire.
Yeah,
and,
so you guys just sat there and waited for them to show up?
We waited, and the fire trucks get there, and they called the ambulance, and then the ambulance came, and that was when we got into the back of the ambulance was the first time I saw either one of us, and I looked at my arms and saw Dave, and his face had skin that had burned off and was peeling,
like melted down.
Yeah, same with me and my ears, and then.
So when they called the ambulance, did you know it was for you? Did you know you were even hurt?
Well, they said you guys are going to need to get checked out. They didn't alarm us.
Oh, so they weren't like, my God.
Yeah, they were like, hey, you guys just need to sit tight here. We're going to call the ambulance and get you checked out. And
at this point, adrenaline's still rolling.
Yeah, and it was still dark. We're sitting out in the parking lot of this. So
the only light is the distant flames.
Yeah, there's a couple of big lights up there, but it's really still very dim. Mm-hmm. And so when the ambulance get there, you're getting this lights like these bright lights, and all of a sudden you look and you go, "Oh man, I'm hurt."
Oh no!
And then you go, this hurts.
So was it was it instant fear or confusion?
Just all that. I mean, you're still in shock. I mean, and shock is it's the way your body and mind protects you from
freezing
terror.
Up in like okay. My gosh.
So they get
you're
us
in the back of the ambulance.
Yeah. So then they get us to the hospital. We spent one night there, and then they transferred us to Oklahoma City because there's no burn unit really in Woodward.
You guys had to go full burn unit.
Yeah, I was supposed to spend 13 days in the burn unit here at Baptist Hospital in Oklahoma City, and that you're for the first few days. I remember my job each day.
Well, you got homework?
Yeah. Well, things to do. They have these. For burn patients, have these stainless steel tubs that have a bench in them. They're like a semicircle, and they can fill with water, but basically you sit on that bench in them, and it's all stainless steel, sterile, and all that, and a little shower head above you. And every day you have to called debriding, and you have a little pair of little toenail scissors and tweezers, and you have to pull the dead skin off because the biggest thing with burns is infection.
Oh man!
And if you get infection with a burn, then you can get sepsis. I mean, you can really go into
you could die.
Yeah, you can go into a really bad place. And so
is that septic shock? Is that
okay? Yeah. I assume that's the same thing. Yeah, but you can get really bad infection in burns, and they don't heal and all that. So you would sit there, and then the nurse or PT or whoever would come in, and since our hands were burned and all that, I mean, they were putting creams and stuff on our face and taking care of that. But
and they had to cut the dead skin off your face.
Well, you had to do it yourself. You had a little mirror.
Oh my gosh!
And all that.
I can't believe they trusted you to just go at it.
You do as much as you can because they want you involved. They want you doing things instead of just sitting there being burned.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need some activities,
really funny.
And you kind of got to where you're like, oh, good, I get to go do this now, because the first 3 or 4 days, I mean, I was on heavy doses of morphine for the pain and all that. So
when that stuff was that probably the worst pain you've ever been in? At the times when you did feel it?
Yeah, because the thing about burns is they hurt nonstop. There is no relief. They put the creams on them and stuff, and you're drugged, but you still know it hurts.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's just I would not wish burns on anybody. I mean, it's horrible. But so I had to sit there and do that. Well, then they come in, the physical therapist, okay, I want you to touch your thumb to each of your fingertips on each hand.
That was your physical therapy?
It would take like 10 minutes.
My God.
I mean, just like
straining.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Get
I mean,
your
shake.
fingertips together?
Yeah. It was like trying to squeeze something as hard as you can and physically shake. That's how hard it was just to.
Were you ever concerned that your motor skills were diminished forever?
No, because they were telling me is if you can do that and we'll keep doing it. And then it got to where, after several days, then you could go.
So they were pretty good at keeping your spirits up too. They weren't just
there's a whole psychological thing. And there's another weird thing. Like in Vegas, there's no clocks because they don't want you to know what time it is. In the burn unit, there are mirrors everywhere. They want you to get used to seeing yourself. If you're going to be scarred for life, you need to start seeing yourself right now. You need to start getting used to how you're going to look now.
This is stuff I would never even thought of.
I know. And so there's a whole psychological aspect to it besides the physical healing.
Now, when I look at you, I mean, I don't know what your skin looked like before, but you look normal to me. So was there ever a time you were like, I'm going to be messed up forever?
Well, actually, we were very fortunate because the way it turned out, because it was a flash fire and we did the proper debreeding, we followed all the instructions. And that's the other thing. They want you to eat as much as you can. And I mean, they were wanting us to eat.
Your energy, calories.
Because your body is working so hard to heal from a burn. And so, I mean, these things are oozing and all this stuff. Ugh. Yeah. So we were eating 6,000 calories a day. It was anything you could eat. And they had these, power shakes, and you could drink as many of those as you wanted. Wanted you to eat all the time. And there was one guy in there, I remember, just terrible, that he'd been burned. A fire came underneath him, and he was burned all inside his legs. And
it was just a guy?
Yeah. He was
his penis burned?
I don't know for sure, but I would imagine.
You didn't check him?
I would see him walking with a walker and stuff, and he'd already been there a month and was going to be there for quite a while longer, and he was a diabetic.
Oh, no.
Which meant he couldn't eat the calories he needed to, so he had all this going on. And
so they got to balance 10 different things.
Yeah. And he was in really bad shape. And then, but had a great doctor, a great team of people, and got us. You sit and pick your skin off every day, and because you've seen when skin hardens, it just curls and all that. So
it gets nasty.
Yeah, so, and if you do that properly every day, the scarring is way less.
Okay.
So, and the worst of my burns were on the bottom side of this left arm. They took skin graft from my leg.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. I do know that you had to have, because I've heard part of that story before. You've had to have skin grafts, and if you look close, you can see the perforations structure.
Yeah, still on the bottom of this arm, and in the summertime, if I tan my legs, you can still see the outline of the rectangle.
No way.
Yeah, on the top of my leg.
That is crazy. Yeah. Do you ever? How often do you think about that experience?
Oh, when I'm around, I see Terry every now and then, so he and I were in the oil field together, and we worked, and we've talked about it a few times, but I don't think a lot of, every now and then I'll be, washing my hands or something, and I'll catch a glimpse of this
because it looks like a little grid on your arm where the skin grafts are, right?
Right in there. You have to look close now, but I mean, you still see it.
No, I can when I see your arm, I can see it.
Yeah. So
I think it looks cool. It's
and when I see that, well, and at this point in my life, it's a cool. It's like, I mean.
Like you're a survivor, I guess.
Well, I digress. I'll tell one thing. Yeah. George Brett, who played for the Kansas City Royals, great baseball player,
guy. Okay.
Hall of Famer, had the famous pine tar incident with the bat. That was George Brett, where he threw a fit and they disallowed a home run because
is that when he's charging out of the dugout?
Yeah, and the pine tar's too far up the handle of the bat. So when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, I'll never forget. I saw his speech, and he said in there, he said, through all my career in baseball and all my life, he said, now the bad memories are good. The good memories are great.
Wow.
And I thought, it still chokes me up.
I know. That's powerful.
I thought, man, that's such a powerful statement. And I think of that now. And I try to live like that and think, we all have bad memories and bad stuff's happened to us, but you think about them, but they're good. They mold who you are, and they become a part of you and your story. And now they're great,
That's so true. Yeah. Even I'm still very young. Even when I look back on things that were terrible memories, even stories I've shared in previous episodes from a couple weeks ago, I remember that first ever heartbreak I went through. A girl had told me and I don't even know if I ever told you this. Like, she had told me one time, she's like, Cody, I need some space. And so I texted her a bunch of pictures of space, which is the most embarrassing. And I remember I thought, I will never get over this.
And you're like, I'm being so clever.
I know. I was so embarrassed. I look back now, and it's hilarious. Now, that's obviously a much different situation than
but it's
having
still,
your arm burned off.
Yeah, but still, it's the same realm of things.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that quote, because I love it.
Yeah.
The bad memories are good, and the good memories are great.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought, man, that was just so powerful then, and still, like I say, it just has a great meaning to me because you just think it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was after that you decided to leave the oil field work?
Well, yeah, and that's when the work was gone basically, and then we were just struggling up there. So 5 of us, me, Rick, Ron, Dave, and Terry. Okay. We all decided,
a boy band.
Oh yeah, our in sync, man. We're gonna move to Oklahoma City, and so packed up all our stuff, and this was, I was getting out of the hospital. I'd been out of the hospital for about 2 weeks, and Rick and Ron came down, found a 4-bedroom house. And so the 5 of us moved into this 4-bedroom house and established ourselves here. And then I went to work for a solar energy company and did that for a few years, and then got into my present career. So yeah.
Well, I want to hear more about your present career on a part 2, or there'll be many parts.
Yeah.
But before, like, because that's kind of a transitional period,
that
like
was,
that mid-20s.
That was the pivotal moment. One of the big pivotal moments in my life was coming from Vegas and getting in the oil field. And that's where I really, truly became a man. I mean, because I was in a man's world then. I was in and dangerous work, and you had to be on your game, you know, because there were so many ways to get hurt. You know, everything's heavy, everything moves fast, everything's powerful, you know, so.
You mentioned being who you're meant to be. Do you think that's where you found out a little bit more about who you were, and you became a little more comfortable being who you were meant to be?
Yeah, and not
the blueprint to
not pretending to be, you know, the tough guy or the cool guy or the or this or that. Just
you're just Chuck.
I'm just me. You know?
I think that's a really
it's a great pivotal moment, I think, in anyone's life when you realize it's okay to be who you are. And I think today's society, it's easier in some ways and harder in some ways.
Yes.
It's easier because the world now is much more accepting of all types of people, you know, gay or straight, black or white. I mean, we're getting there. It's not perfect. We're a long ways away, but the world is becoming more accepting.
Towards it for sure,
moving is getting much better. But, you know, back in Lebanon, Missouri in 1975, if you were gay, you better not let anybody know about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so now it's but you said like easier or harder in some ways. I'm curious from your perspective, how do you think it might be harder to? Well, because I agree, but I'm curious your perspective.
Well, because if someone sees something as negative about you, they can post it and they can get 1,000 people to agree with them. Mm-hmm. Oh, Cody sucks.
Yeah.
You know, and just like that, in a matter of moments, you can have a whole movement against one person. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I see, you know, teen suicides that you hear about because they were bullied either, and maybe just cyberbullied, you know.
Oftentimes it's mostly cyberbullying.
And it's just, they're just saying bad things about you, but the effect it has of that person who really hasn't found out who they are yet, and they get, you know,
because when you're that young, it's hard to sift through.
That
stuff.
All you see is just everyone around you is hating on you, and you're embarrassed and shame, and you know, and all that, and you just see no way out. And I think it's just one of the saddest societal things we have right now is the bullying and the instant everything. And I mean,
like the outrage culture.
I mean, there are times like I love to pick up my phone if I can't remember a certain fact and say, who was the star of such and such movie in 19, and it'll tell me in a millisecond. Yeah, I love that aspect of it.
Cool.
But
the
at the
ease
same
of information access.
Yeah, and if you can't remember something, don't know something, you can find it out just in an instant. But the other side of that coin is you can destroy in an instant too. You know, you can make someone's life a hell.
I think it's a good point you made about how, like, small town Lebanon, like, you know, if you're a homosexual or something like that, you got to keep it a secret. And now, yes, that's more accepted, but with the ability of everyone to have an audience, how popular outrage culture is, and the prevalence and kind of all-encompassing nature of like the internet and social media, yes, in a lot of big, solid ways, society is quote-unquote more accepting, but in a lot of smaller, more abstract ways, it's become more fragmented and quicker to judge than ever. Because, you know, when you were 20 years old, you know, if you wanted to just kind of get away from it all and be off the grid, you know, it was like very easy to do.
Yeah.
You just move 50 miles away and you could start over. But now it's just like you're kind of always plugged in, and it's a lot harder to do those things. So I think that that's a pretty good nuanced point you made about in some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder. That brings me to, because I want to pick up the rest of your story later, but I want to know, at this point in your life, like looking back, are there any experiences you had that made a bigger impact or shaped you more than you originally thought they would?
Yeah.
And the flip side of that, are there any things that you at the time you thought were like end all be all, super important, and looking back it's like that just wasn't that important?
Yeah. Well, the burn. I mean, just I had no idea the impact that would have on me, because that's one of those things you look back on that was horrible.
Yeah.
But it was great.
Okay.
It changed who I was at that, working in the oil field, got me out of that and got me on to where my life was supposed to be, and where I was tracking to become who I am now.
Yeah.
Get me here. I never would have met. That'll be in part 2, Tim Castleberry, and becoming the business I have now and all that. So would have never met your mom.
Yeah.
So to me, I look back as getting burned was a good experience, and it gives you a lot of time to reflect on the fragility and the the instant. I mean, we could have just as easily died.
Yeah.
We could have just as easily died.
Yeah.
But here I am, 40 years later, telling my son about it.
That's true. And it's like somebody really smart said this. I don't remember who. They said like life is 20% what happens to you, 80% how you react to it. I just the person that you are, and I'm 26. For 26 years, you've been consistent in this. Whatever happens, you are always building on it, learning from it, optimistic about it, and looking back and thinking that it might have been bad, but good things came from it, or this experience was good. I think you could have just as easily be 40 years later still talking about that burn as, man, I had it all going for me, and I was this accident, and I got burned, and my life was on track, and here I am, broke with nothing to show for, and like I have nothing to show for my life. But instead, that experience and many other hardships, you look back and think, man, I learned a lot of great things, met a lot of the right people. It was a great turning point. So I think that is a credit to you as the type of individual that has like real grit and real substance to him, and can make something, like no matter what situation you would have been in. I personally believe, now I'm still pretty young and naive, I personally believe no matter what situation that you were in, you would have found a way to be successful. You would have found a way to come into your own and to achieve this self-actualization where you know who you are, you like who you are, and in both a solid and abstract sense have really made something of yourself. So I think that I think that George Brett quote is true. Like, the bad memories are good, the good memories are great. I also think it takes a certain type of person to truly have that perspective. And you're like one of those people that really has it, because, we know tons of people who, when bad stuff happens to them,
they shut down.
It just like, it ruins them, and it affects them negatively for years. And you're just one of those people who I've seen, you go through a ton of struggles, and it's just like, I almost take for granted how capable you are of just one foot in front of the other. Life is about showing up. You just show up every day and do your best. And so, it's like that was ingrained in me by you to such an extent where there's just, in my head, there's just no other way to do it. So I would say that, like, that's something I look forward to in the rest of my life. Like, whatever struggles I have, I know if I just handle it like my dad handled it, things are going to turn out not only okay, but even better. So I think that makes me want to ask, are there any qualities of yourself that you see in me, like, that sometimes surprise you? Or are there any qualities in me that you're like, whoa, that's way different from me, and it kind of surprises you in a fun way, or not fun way?
The one that surprises me the most, and I'm very proud of for you, is that how disciplined you are, and how, like, you want to do a podcast. You didn't just say, oh, I'm just going to throw some stuff together and I'll do a podcast. You did months of research. How does the podcast work? What equipment do I need? How does it get posted? What are the subjects that are, and how does it, that's the thing that is admirable to me about you, that if you decide to do something, first thing you do is research the hell out of it. Then you're going to have, a stack of notes on everything that you did to get there. And you just have a great tenacity that and I'm tenacious in a way too, but I'm backing up for a second. I wonder if these qualities, have you ever thought, are they learned, or is there a genetic component too? Because we come from Grandma KK and Pa, same qualities.
Yeah.
Hard work. That's all they knew. Hard work will get me there. And that's, if you talk to the top 5 richest people in the world and say, name the top 3 things, one of those 3 things is going to be hard work.
It's going to land somewhere in there.
That's going to be in that list. And so I wonder, I think about that sometimes. Do I just come from good stock? I think physically I do. I've been very blessed with the ability to do the work that I do. So that I know is genetics, but is the grit and the heart that you have, is that learned, or is it?
I think it's both, because I do know that there is actual factual research and data out there that shows that there is a genetic component to like each and every personality trait. But I think that it's one of those things like, like if you plant a redwood tree, it's going to grow into a redwood tree and be super tall and thick and healthy, but not if it doesn't have water, nutrients, and sunlight. So I think that seed always had the potential to become a redwood tree, but without the proper, whether it's nurturing along the way, environment, learning, a seed doesn't have the same capability as a human to make their own decisions, but without the proper ingredients given to that seed, it would have never become a redwood tree. So I really do think, as much of a cop-out answer as it sounds like, the answer really is both. Like, we had these genetic components within us that may have predisposed us to, maybe sticking to things, having a certain amount of tenacity, but whether it was the way our parents raised us, lessons we learned along the way, those qualities were brought to fruition. So I think it's both.
We were both modeled. I mean, you were modeled in your mom and I both. I mean, we're hard workers.
Yeah.
Mom gets up and goes to work every day, so do I, and that's just the way it is. I was modeled that. My parents, dad was in the military, mom had her job, but they started that business. They bought, it's funny, the first truck they bought, it was a 1966 International Harvester. They don't even make them anymore, pickup truck, and it came with a pony.
Like a real horse?
A pony, yes.
A real horse?
A real
Oh,
yes,
wow. I thought that was like a attachment of some
No,
type.
his name was Major, and he was the meanest, nastiest, and I think that's why they gave the horse. They said, well, if you get a pony too.
I could just imagine they're selling the truck, and they're like, well, the truck's $1,200, but we'll throw in the pony for $1,000. Like, the truck is $1,200, but if you take the pony with it, we'll only charge you $1,000.
We'll take $1,000 to get the pony. Yeah, and we had him for maybe a few months and gave him to some people.
Was that bad?
Oh, we gave him to some people because we tried to ride him, because kids, we thought, we got a pony, we'll ride the pony, and he was always trying to bite you. He was trying to kick, trying to throw you off. He was just he was a mean little cuss, man.
Oh my gosh, that's so
There's a picture
funny.
of me somewhere. I'm probably about 10 years old, sitting on him, going.
Like just a little scared, like he's gonna kill me.
Like, take it quick. Can I get off now? Yeah,
that is hilarious.
But anyway,
oh my gosh.
But that just the way they started with nothing, and they just kept working and working and working, and just always knew if we keep working hard, and if we buy something for $1 and sell it for $2, that's a good day.
Yeah, I think it. Like kind of that just stacking hard work on top of each other. It makes me think of, I've read it different ways in different books, but basically it's the concept that like in life and anything like big and meaningful accomplishments, the results always have a latency period from the work.
Yeah.
So like the work you put in will not only usually doesn't, but never does show at the time.
Right.
It's like whether it, like the most obvious example is probably like results in the gym. Like you've been working out every day. Well, and you do physical labor, but just in the gym working out multiple days a week, 3 to 7 days a week for
over 30 years.
30 years. So each workout, do you look at your body and it looks any different? No. But if you take somebody that is your age and they could have the same diet and stuff as you, but and you took them from then to now and looked at the way your bodies and probably mind and health differ, the results would be astronomical, like almost unquantifiable, because the stacking and the compounding nature of the work you put in. So like efforts in the gym, I think is a great example. Efforts in business, like your window cleaning business, which we'll talk more about that like in your next appearance. But the, when you first started that, I'm sure that you would, like, if you work super hard for a whole week, well, you don't have a window cleaning empire. So it's kind of like, if you're not thinking ahead, you're like, I worked my ass off this week and I only have, $50.
Well, that'll be fun to tell, because that I clearly knew then what my plan was. And the first time in my life,
I was just about to say it was the first time. It sounds like
26,
you had a real...
I was 26 years old. I was your age.
Oh, wow.
When I first started cleaning windows. Yeah. I saw what it could be. And it was funny because I asked Grandma KK and Pa, my parents, what they thought about it, and they told me not to do it.
Really?
Yeah, and here I am 36 years later
and they still say it was wrong.
Say, well, I guess that's going to work out. So that's become my life's work. But I can share more about how I approached it early when I first started, and what I saw, and how I set the goals to get there. And so
I am excited to hear about that. I want to close today's episode with, you gave
one last thing.
Oh, yeah.
The other saying I love is, if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you're getting.
I was just about to ask, did you have any other, because you've given a couple really nice tidbits of advice about, be who you're meant to be. Mm-hmm. The bad memories are good, the good memories are great. So if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting. I'm assuming, I'll take a guess at what that interprets to, and then I want your take on it. If you want to see a change in your life, you have to change your behavior. Yep. So what does it mean to you? Is that kind of, you're 26. Is that some of the realizations you started to have? Yeah,
and then now, at this age, it's for sure. I mean, I'm just 100% convinced, no doubt, that and mine was just, I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to go do the work that I have lined out, and if there's time at the end of the day, I'm going to go look for more work. Yeah, I just keep doing that, and it just grew and just continued to grow because I kept putting in the effort. And it's like anything you do. If you keep putting in the effort, you're going to get results. And, I'm never going to be the biggest window cleaning company in the world. Don't want to be. Yeah. Your mom tried to get me to go that route, and we can talk about that too. But I said, nope, that is not me.
It reminds me of a success system, quote unquote, that I heard one time. And it was like, just follow these steps and you'll be successful. Learn, do, repeat. It's like, if you learn about something, you do it, you learn from doing it, and then you go back to step one, you learn more from doing it, you do it again, you learn more from, it's like that. Just, you
self-fulfilling stuff. Yeah. Well, and then, back to what you said about, and what I believe about being who you're meant to be. I don't want to bring religion into this and all this, but I believe God has a plan for all of us, and God has his notion of who you should be and how he created you. We all have a place to fit in. And if you're always fighting that, you're never going to be happy. Okay. If you're fighting who you're meant to be and trying to be something that you wish you were instead of who you really are, I mean, that's where I was. I always wished I was somebody else. I thought, why did I spend so much time wishing I was someone else?
I've done it a ton of it too.
And I know. I think everyone can ask that question in their life. It's like, why did we do that? When now it's like, I think I'm all right. Yeah. I'm okay. I'm a good guy. So.
I think a cool period, and I'm still trying to get there myself, but there are moments, and when I see other individuals like yourself do it, it's very inspiring, where it's like, you're not the window cleaner. You're not the dad. You're not the guy who tells jokes. You're not, the fitness instructor. You're Chuck. And you love that. Yeah. You have this self-assuredness about you. And it's like, I don't want to be the golfer. I don't want to be the podcaster. I don't want to be the comedian. I don't want to be the business guy, whatever it may be. I want to be Cody. Yeah. It's like, and just be, and accept that. Being any of those things doesn't matter if you don't like yourself. Correct. If you don't like who you are, that's the tough part, is realizing that, I'm okay. I'm who I'm meant to be. And just, and there's people who are fabulously wealthy, and there are people who drastically poor, and I fit somewhere in the middle, and I'm okay with that. I don't, I live a happy life, and like who I am, and your mom I like who you are too. Well, thanks. And your mom hates to talk about death and dying and all that. And I said, because I already have my list of songs that will be played at my funeral. I didn't know if you knew. Yeah, I did not know that. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Headlined by Blackbird by the Beatles, and Into the Mystic by Van Morrison. I love Blackbird by the Beatles. That is a cool song. Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night. Yes, man. Because it's really short too. It's like a minute and a half. Yeah, it's like minute 50, I think. It's a great song. Take these broken wings and fly away. To me, that's going to heaven. Yeah, I'm done, and take me away. I said, all I want on my headstone is he was one of the good ones. That's all people need to know. And if I could truly have that meaningfully
put on my headstone, that's awesome. Yeah. So.
Well, I'll make sure it's on there because you were one of the great ones. I might amend it a little bit. Since you're dead, you want to have a say. I put the great ones.
But that's all I really, at this point, at 62, that's all I really want. Just be remembered as he was one of the good ones.
And I can speak with full confidence. Myself, Jesse, Mom, all our friends, all our family. That's how we see you. That's how you will be remembered as one of the great ones.
I got a few years to go. I could all turn on that could turn on the dime.
You built it to such a level, you would have to work really hard to tear it down.
Yeah, I'd have to molest children or something.
You'd have to simultaneously shoot up a school, grope a kid while saying racial slurs. The combination.
Racial slurs. And naked.
Yeah, the individual acts themselves, but the combination was so terrible.
Yeah, you just couldn't, any one of those we could have got over.
But the combo, it's all doing it at the same time.
Well,
thank you so much for doing this.
If we're wrapping this, I was a little apprehensive, a little nervous, but just getting in here and talking with you and just, because I've told these stories many times over the years, but never to you, I don't think.
I'll hear bits and pieces of them, but
never
mostly
in depth.
from other family members. So
this has been really good, and I would encourage other fathers and sons to, whether it's podcast or just sit down, just do it. Just tell the stories, and you had a list of stuff you wanted to cover, and which helps too. Kind of gives
a little bit of structure.
Yeah, just kind of like, okay, well, what about this? But there was a lot of free flow in there, and a lot of fun. So thanks for letting me do this with you.
I've had a blast. I think like you said, you were a little apprehensive. I was nervous too, just because it's probably for a whole different reason. This is something that, this podcast, I've invested a lot of time and energy and effort, and I want you to look at it with pride. And when people ask you, what are your kids doing? And you say, well, my son's doing a podcast. I don't want you to be embarrassed about it. I want you to be proud. And so having you being a part of it was really special to me. So I'm really grateful that you did
thanks,
it. And it'll be the first of many.
Yeah, look forward to coming back. It'll be fun.
That'll be awesome.
Get to know you finally.
Well, thank you for doing this. And
you bet.
I'll play the outro music there. And we'll see you next time.
All right.
The Cody